Hi, I'm Holly-Ann Martin, Managing Director of Safe for Kids, and I'm making this short video just to talk to you about protective behaviours. Protective behaviours is a program that's designed to empower children, and the reason that we need all children to know this is, unfortunately, in Australia, up to 1/3 of Australia's children will suffer some form of sexual abuse before their 18th birthday. And unfortunately, children with special needs are up to 7 times more likely to be abused than mainstream children. Now, I'm not telling you this to frighten you or to upset you. I'm telling you this to empower you, because we're bringing this resource, if you choose to apply for it, to you. It's a parent handbook that I wrote, and it has everything about protective behaviours in it. So I'm just going to go through some of the tips that are in the book that you might find useful. For instance, one of the things that very early on I talk to kids about is about feeling safe and feeling unsafe. So whenever I use these words, I always use this sign language with children. So I will teach them this for safe and this for unsafe. Now, it is such a simple tool, but you'd be surprised how many times a day you're finding yourself using it. I'll go into schools and I'll hear kids out in the playground, telling other kids, hey, you're being unsafe, going down the slide like that. Or it could be used, you're out somewhere with your children, one of your children is doing something you're really not happy about, you can just eyeball them, go like that, and kids are going to know, wait to get in the car. Or your child might be with a group of friends and their friends want them to go off and do something, but your child doesn't want to go. So they could just subtly go like this, very shyly, and you'll notice that, and you could say, oh no, we can't come, they're busy, or something like that. So this for safe and this for unsafe. So we talk about safe and unsafe situations, but you might also talk about safe and unsafe touches. When I'm working with children, I would brainstorm the kinds of touches that are safe, and I'll have children tell me, kissing, cuddling, holding hands, high fives are all safe touches, but they're much better at the touches that they don't like, the unsafe touches, pinching and punching and biting and hair pulling and all of those sorts of things. Now, tickling is a great example. Do you like to be tickled? When I ask a class of children who likes to be tickled, at least half the class don't like it. So this is a really good way of being able to introduce the concept of consent with children. We need to explicitly teach consent. So if I go up and start tickling a child, that wouldn't be okay. And so I ask the class who would like it, and half the class don't. So I pick one that doesn't, and I go up and say, is it okay if I tickle you? And they usually sit on the carpet going, you're the teacher, do what you like. Well, no, if you don't like it, you've got the right to say you don't like it. It's really important for children with special needs to learn about consent, because of maybe going to therapy and respite and things like that. Lots of adults might be doing things to them. So you want everybody in your child's life to know about consent, and that they need to ask your child to do anything to them. Another thing that's covered in the book is we help the children set up a safety team of 5 adults that they can talk to. Now, a safety team needs to be adults, because kids can't stop bad things happening to other children. So I explain to the children that they need to be old enough to drive legally, and they need to be able to use the telephone, because some kids either want to put the dog or God on their safety team, and you can explain that no, they can't use the telephone, because if they need help, they need to be able to access them. So as well as being an adult, they also need to have this criteria. Help your children find somebody that's going to listen to them, believe them, be available, and take action if necessary. It's no good a child telling somebody something and they don't listen to them. So really spend the time helping your children set up this safety team. And the way I like to teach it is, on the thumb would be anybody from a child's home. Now, if they want mum and dad, and they both live in the same house, then they would just take up the thumb. On the next 2 fingers would be 2 people from school. And the reason that we have 2 people from school is, if some children only had 1 person from school and that person was away, some kids don't have the cognitive skills to go, well, I could talk to the assistant or the principal. They just go, oh gosh, I don't have a safety team today. And then on the last 2 fingers are 2 people from the community. So aunts and uncles, grandparents, next door neighbours, people from respite, people from church, sports coaches, friends of yours or their friends' parents, just any other adults that your children have access to. So I'll go over that again. Somebody from home, 2 people from school, and then 2 people from the community. On the wrist is for emergency, so teaching kids to use 000, and I also give the kids helpline number that they can contact if they don't feel safe. The third thing I'd like to share with you is the importance of children using the correct anatomical names for their private body parts. It's really important. It can be a protective factor. They did a study in prison of people who had abused children, and prisoners say that if a child is using the correct anatomical names, they're more likely they would leave that child alone, because either school, home, childcare, somebody's done some sort of intervention with that child. A child that's calling it a Mary or a frou-frou, unfortunately isn't more likely to be targeted. But rather than just focusing on body parts, I talk about public and private as a whole concept. So we talk about public and private rooms and places, body functions, behaviour, language, pictures and dancing. And this is where I talk to kids about pornography. Now, again, I'm not trying to upset you, but it's not a case of if your children see porn, it is when your children see porn. And I've dedicated 2 whole pages in the book to giving you the language to be able to talk about that. I don't call it porn when I'm working with children, I call them private pictures or private movies. And in the book it's really spelt out how to explain it to children that way. So once we've talked about those, then we would talk about public and private clothing, and then we get down to naming the correct anatomical names. So I teach children that your private parts are those parts of your body that are covered by your bathers plus your mouth. And again, I use sign language. So we teach the kids that public means people around, and then sign for private is your hand in front of your mouth, because your mouth is a private part, and then sometimes what you say can be private. So it's a flat hand, turn the key. That's the sign for private. And so we go through and we name all of the different words. And so at the end of the lesson, we would actually go through and say, you know, the boys get to say willy and cock and doodle. And I say that's what a doctor would call it a penis. The dictionary calls it a penis, and in English it's a penis. So for boys, we have mouth, testicles, penis and bottom. And then for girls, we use mouth, breast, vagina, vulva and bottom. So those are just a few tips that you'll get in the parent handbook. So I hope you found this video useful. Stay safe. Enjoy teaching your children protective behaviours. Bye.